Tommy Best, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now, here's your host. Incarceration, America's rock, metal, and tattoo festival with Slipknot. Falling in Reverse. Five-Finger Death Punch. Plus Marilyn Manson, 3 Days Grace, Beartooth, Knocked Loose, Lamb of God, Parkway Drive, I Prevail, In This Moment, and so many more. Report to the Ohio State Reformatory on July 18th through 20th, 2025 to face your sentencing. 3 days of rock, tattoos, and the return of the Haunted Blood Prison. Passes for Incarceration are on sale now at incarceration.com. Zombified.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Bailey, co-founder of Domain Cleveland Entertainment and host of today's Boondoggle podcast. And I am here live at Misnyland with Tim Misny. Mr. Tim Misny, how are you doing, sir?
Looking sharp, my brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I learned from the best of them.
All right.
I think there's a future partnership.
Something's going on here.
You know, we got to
Yes,
get some Boondoggle billboards out there in the future, I believe. But usually, sir, when I have somebody on my show and I thank you for your time today.
Sure.
I understand you have a birthday coming up, so really happy birthday.
Yeah, tomorrow's my birthday, April 22nd.
Well,
yes,
happy
sir.
birthday, sir.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
And usually when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a quick background. So
Sure.
do you remember originally what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh, yeah. As a kid, played a lot of baseball, wanted to be a pro baseball player. Max Alvis was a hero of mine, all-star third baseman for the Cleveland Indians, and couldn't play enough baseball, man. That was it, you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, our good friend Connor Vandermeulen of a Holy Name School in Stowe sent me this question. He wanted me to ask you, when you were in school, what was some of your favorite subjects?
Well, I'm kind of like my boys. I have a 15-year-old and an 11-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. I have 15-year-old and 11-year-old twins, Ruby and Gus. And if you ask my sons what their favorite class or subject is, it's recess and lunch. So it's consistent in my family, research and lunch. But as I moved on and did my undergraduate work at John Carroll, I enjoyed writing. I was a political science major, and I enjoyed writing. I got a job as a journalist. I worked for the Sun newspapers. At the time, it was the largest weekly chain of newspapers, and I worked my way through my undergraduate work at John Carroll writing. So, that helped me establishing my law firm and really becoming a lawyer. And you tell stories. So if I'm representing a client, I have to tell their story in a very succinct, believable way. So my journalistic background helped, and I enjoy telling stories. All of my my commercials are mini movies. So we're trying to tell a story.
Gotcha. And then, you mentioned building going into law school, building your law school. What kind of brought you to pursuing law?
Well, the story is that my maternal grandfather was an immigrant from Croatia, and he came to Cleveland to make a better life for himself. And he met my grandmother, his wife, Veronica, and they were married in Cleveland and had three beautiful children. Well, he was a steel worker helping with the construction of Tower City Center. And one day the scaffolding that he was working on collapsed, and he tragically fell to his death. And my grandmother could not read or write a word of English, and she took in laundry during the day and cleaned offices at night because all she got for compensation was his last check. And she raised three wonderful kids, one being my mom. And when I was 8 years old, she lived with us. We lived in a little bungalow in Euclid, and we took 3 buses to get downtown to Tower City Center. We walked in, And she sat me down on a bench, and she pointed up to the concourse, and she said, Timo, do you see this place? Your grandfather helped build it. And I said, wow, Graham, who lives here? And she goes, no, sweetheart, no one lives here. Lawyers have offices here. If you study real hard, work real hard, someday you too will have an office here as well, because there will always be people that need you. And my response was, now could I have my roasted cashews? But it sounds corny. At the age of 8, I knew that I was going to be a lawyer helping folks who have been injured at no fault of their own.
And you were mentioning how you were into journalism, but then when did you go to law school? Where did you get your degree from?
Right. I did my undergraduate. I'm a Cleveland boy. I went to Villa Angela St. Joe High School. At the time, it was St. Joe High School. Then I went to John Carroll, and then I went to law school at Cleveland State in the evening program, John Marshall Law School in the evening program.
And since that time, obviously, have built your name here in the Cleveland area. What was that like, when you first got your law degree, to building your name to what it is today in Cleveland?
Well, it's like everything else in life, man. It's an evolution. I started in the prosecutor's office, and I was in the prosecutor's office for 4 years. And then the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association stole me away, and I represented cops for 4 years when I like to say there was a misunderstanding. And a lot of cops had accident cases. They were constantly getting hurt on the job. So they would come to me as the union lawyer, and I started settling their cases and getting a reputation as a guy who could handle personal injury cases very well. And then it snowballed. And then I started doing that exclusively. And I started advertising on television, and I adopted the tagline, I'll make them pay. And then it just kind of exploded. And every year, constantly, we're getting bigger, and we're accomplishing more, so it's been a great progression. I've been doing this for 44 years. I know I have a tough time believing that because I'm so youthful looking, but it's true. I've been doing it 44 years, and I love it, man. This is my passion. This is why I'm on this earth.
I agree. And, I was going to ask you, too, the make 'em pay slogan that got you popular. Where did that originate?
Right. Well, I think basically, my marketing, I think, is so successful in that it connects with people because it's authentic and it's organic in nature. I was representing a young man. I got called by a father of this young man. He had tonsils removed, and the doctor wasn't trained properly on a robotic device, and he inadvertently cut the boy's artery. He bled out, and he suffered severe permanent brain damage. So the father called me and asked me to come to the hospital to meet him and the family. So I went into the little boy's hospital room, and it was shocking because the boy was my son's age at the time, and he was wearing the same Spider-Man t-shirt that my son wears, but he was on life support. And there were 11 relatives in that room, and they asked me all kind of questions, and they signed the contract. I walked out, and I walked down the hallway to the elevator, hit the elevator button, and I'm waiting for the door to open, and the grandmother followed me out, and she walked up to me. She was about 5'2", maybe 70 pounds, and she poked her little skinny index finger into my chest, and she looked up to me and she said, "Now you go make them pay." And a light went on in my head, and I thought, this is what I do. I make them pay. But make them pay is more than just getting compensation for folks. It's holding people responsible and leveling the playing field. And hopefully we change the way businesses, whether doctors, hospitals, or businesses do conduct themselves, because when they have to settle out on a case with me, they make changes because they certainly can't afford to keep paying out on these cases. So we change the way people do business. So hopefully the tragedy that happened to my client will never happen to anyone ever again. Yeah.
And then, we talked about your advertising to help build the brand and build the name out there. Mm-hmm. What was it that led you to Billboards? Why Billboards?
Well, I'll tell you, when we talk about advertising, the best advertising is word of mouth. We have some pretty engaging advertising, but the bottom line of it is that we back it up with results. And I've gotten a call recently. A lady called me and she said, "Tim, you may not remember me, but I first came to your office when I was 3 years old." I said, "Okay, when was that?" She said, "About 35 years ago." Well, I had represented her family. And so now the next generation has called me. I've had the third generation calling me. So you get good results for people, and that's the basis of it. But getting great results means that you prepare. You bring in the right people to testify, and oftentimes, in my cases, they're very expensive to handle them the way we handle them. But that's what we're about in getting great results. But the marketing is, plays into that, is based upon that. But there's no substitute for getting great results for people. You can have the best marketing in the world, but if your product isn't any good, you're not going to last long.
Yeah, but in the Cleveland, in the greater Cleveland area, it's like you can't go not
Right.
too far without seeing
Right.
your face or your slogan on
Right.
one of those billboards. Do you remember where your first billboard went up at?
Well, I don't remember where the first billboard. It might have been outside the Cleveland Hopkins Airport. But I'll tell you how billboards came about. I was driving along one day with my family, and we were going out to buy chicks, little chicks for my daughter. She wanted to raise chicks and have chickens. So we're driving out, and I saw a blank billboard, and the light clicked on in my head. I said, I think billboards could work for me. So I called the billboard folks, and we peppered in a couple billboards. I think it was like 6 or so, and we started getting results right away. But it's grown to the point now we have like 299 billboards, all the way from Sandusky to Ashtabula down to Akron, Canton, and across. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, like where the furthest one is out.
cover a big geographic territory. I mean, Ohio's a big state, man.
Oh, yeah.
And the beauty of my billboards is that if anyone's driving, they may not necessarily live in that area. They could be driving through. I think it was like 6 or so, and we started getting results right away. But it's grown to the point now we have like 299 billboards, all the way from Sandusky to Ashtabula down to Akron, Canton, and across. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, like where the furthest one is out.
cover a big geographic territory. I mean, Ohio's a big state, man.
Oh, yeah.
And the beauty of my billboards is that if anyone's driving, they may not necessarily live in that area. They could be driving through Cleveland, or they could be in Sandusky and see a billboard and live in Cleveland, or vice versa. So they're memorable, and I think that it connects with people because they know it's authentic and we're having fun with it.
Yeah, I remember going to a friend's wedding, like south of Vermillion, some like very small town
Right.
driving, and all of a sudden there still was
Can't
Tim
get away
Misny.
from Tim
Can't-
Misny.
Can't get
Can't get
from Tim
away.
Misny.
No,
There
can't.
you were, watching over everyone. I wanted to ask also, going back to, I've been a big fan lately of watching that show Yellowstone and John
Sure.
Dutton and
Sure.
and the ranch, and then I'm thinking of the Misnyland, building the Misnyland. Tell me about.
Well,
Misny.
I'd settled my first big case, and I had mentioned before I grew up in a one-bedroom bungalow in Euclid, and the houses were just far enough apart to get a car between. And I kid that they were big cars back then. But the point is, I always wanted land. And so when I settled my first big case about 30 years ago, I wanted a place with land. So I found this property, and it's 80 acres, and it's really spectacular. It's a great place to raise kids, and it's not that far from downtown. It's 20 minutes from downtown, 20 minutes from Beechwood Place. So, to have that kind of land, sometimes you got to drive 2, 3, 4 miles out, So it's a great location, and we've grown into it. We've done a lot of really cool things, but the land itself is magical. The other day, we have streams, and steelhead trout swim up the streams. And the other day, I saw a bald eagle swoop down and grab a steelhead trout and fly away with it. So it's a magical place. Love being there.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned your daughter wanting to raise chickens
Yeah.
and having chicks on there,
Yeah.
and I love following, of course, the positive messages that you send out, like especially Lazy Sundays
Right.
on your social media
Right.
page, and you give us a little glimpse of Misnyland. So it's like you
Right.
have you're self-sufficient there. I think your own water springs. And
Yeah,
everything
we
like that
have
as well.
we have a grotto, an artesian water well, and that's spectacular. We have some ponds stocked with fish, and I have a huge organic vegetable garden, 45 feet by 150 foot organic vegetable garden. So we could sustain ourselves, and we have a gas well, natural gas well as well. So we could hang out there and never leave. But it's, like I said, it's a great place to raise kids.
Oh, I bet. And then, speaking of that too, I'm sure it wasn't a bad place to be when we all had to, the planet was put on timeout for a little bit.
That's great insight, because we homeschooled our kids for a year, and that was the best year of my life. Being with them throughout the day and participating in their development and being really, really tight with it. It was great. So that was a great year, and we enjoyed the property. We got. I'm a beekeeper. I'm an apiary, so we got bee suits for the kids. We went into the hives. I got waders, so we went into the streams and caught fish and caught toads and frogs and lizards or salamanders, etc. It was fantastic. The property really came to life with the kids, and that's what happens with a property. I mean, you and I could drive around the golf cart and have a nice time, but when the kids get their waders on, they go in the streams, or they go in the beehives, or we go camping and they make a bonfire and we do s'mores over the bonfire. That's when it really becomes something special.
Oh, yeah. And I like what you said, too, is like, I was thinking about that time period as well, and it was just like, there was a lot of depressed people going
Right.
through, I'm in recovery, and I knew a lot of guys that
Sure.
unfortunately went back out and didn't
Sure.
come back
Right.
during that time period. But, I tried looking at it from the positive aspect as well. Both of my daughters are grown women now,
Mm-hmm.
so we're basically like roommates, but then they were stuck having to hang out with dad
Right.
again, and there was
Right.
that bonding time we
Yeah.
got to bring back. So
Yeah.
it depends how you looked at
Yeah,
at
like
that
everything
time
else in
period,
life. I mean, the old saying, God gives you lemons, what do? You make lemonade. And so I really enjoyed that time, and we kind of changed my marketing scheme during that time. It was a softer, gentler approach, and we had some great ads that talked about being compassionate and being understanding and non-judgmental and helping, actually going out of your way to help people who are less fortunate. And it was, so my marketing tries to shift gears according to the environment. If we're going around a bend, we may want to downshift, and then when we're in a straightaway, slap it up to the fifth gear. So it was a tough time, but we made the best of it.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned the steelhead trout.
Right.
My girlfriend loves fishing. She's you've met her, the firefighter
Sure.
EMT.
Sure.
And she wanted me to ask you a question as well. Bernese Mountain Dogs. She
Right.
wants to know a little bit more about your Bernese Mountain Dog.
Right. His name is Hank the Tank, and he's such a cool, smart boy. We have a Labradoodle, chocolate Labradoodle named Buddy, and they get along great. But he is such a good-looking boy, and man, is he solid! Holy smokes! And he enjoys jumping up and putting his paws over your shoulders, and like you're dancing with him. Oh, he is so cool, and he's a big boy. Yeah,
Nice.
great dog. And and the dogs are so lucky to hang out in Misnyland. They run around and catch scents and go into the streams, and they have the time of their life every day.
That's great.
Yeah, it is.
And then her son Connor wanted to ask another question.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite comic book?
Well, I'm a Batman guy, and I still am. So yeah, I think Batman coming up was my was my favorite. Nothing to discuss. Batman was my favorite. Not Superman, Batman. I just thought Batman was cooler for some reason. Still do.
And I understand, speaking of comic books, that there's been times where you've played Lex Luthor or Superman's.
Right. I'm part of the Superheroes for Kids in Ohio, and they approached me a few years ago. And this group they're super cool, and they're super compassionate to kids who have disabilities. And I participated past several years, and it's great. I play Lex Luthor, and the skit is that I've trapped Superman and Supergirl, and there's kryptonite at their feet, and I'm talking to this group of kids. I'm trying to convince them to join my team, the evil team. And, there's boo, boo, and then I say, well, hear me out. There's no homework involved. And they look at me and say, you can stay up as late as you want every night. Then they go, well, really? And eyes get real big, and all the ice cream you could eat. But then they save Superman by removing the kryptonite, and then I get arrested and I'm carted off. But it's wonderful to see this group of folks. They're so genuine, and some of the characters, they don't need padding. I mean, Batman and Superman, these guys are built, and everybody participates because they just love entertaining these kids and putting a smile on their face when sometimes they have nothing to smile about. But what's remarkable to me, it gives me a sense that how fortunate we are with our kids, that everyone's healthy, and to see these kids who have problems, but they're making the best of it, really is a sobering thing.
Yeah, definitely. And then, we talked a little bit about your influence on social media, but also like other forms of media. You've been influential on local television for a number of years as well, commercials.
Yeah.
When did you get into that?
Oh, man, I don't know. Probably 20 years ago, somewhere around there, 20 plus years, I started advertising on television. But we didn't have the tagline, make them pay. I just mumbled some stuff like most lawyers, I'll be there for you, no recovery, no fee. But when we adopted the tagline, it really connected with people. It kind of separated me from the clutter. And as soon as I did that, you walk into Starbucks and someone says, hey, make them pay. Or I'm walking down the street in Chagrin Falls and, a car of kids slows down, they roll their windows down. I think, oh man, they're going to moon me or something. And the kid points out, you go make them pay, and I go make them pay. So the make them pay really connects, and it kind of separates me from the other advertisers, and it's great. It works.
And where was the inspiration for the finger point and the eyebrow?
Great question. I was asked to speak at a lawyer convention one year down in Atlanta, and they needed a recent shot of myself. I didn't have any recent pictures, so I went to a photographer, and she was taking some photos, your standard photos, and then at the end she said, let's have fun. And just for giggles, I just, gave her the look, the eyebrow, and pointed, and she snapped that picture, and that was iconic. It just, at that moment, it just happened. So when I made a move to have billboards, I selected that picture of the pointing, with the eyebrow, and it connected in a way that I never thought possible.
Yeah. I think I'm a big wrestling fan. Grew up, and I think of The Rock.
Sure, sure.
In
fact, I've told my kids that I suggested to The Rock that he should raise his eyebrow. I taught The Rock how to do it, and you think he would, give me some credit for it? Wow, but they don't. When I first told them that, they were a lot younger, and they kind of believed me. But now they know that it was a joke.
They're on to you now.
They're on to me, yeah.
Now, talking of your growth in celebrity here in the area too, and media influence, there's a infamous video out there when the Cavaliers were going to the championships,
right.
And we had LeBron James, and it was like a "We
Right.
Are the World"
Right.
cover. We Are LeBron, and you got to have a cameo in that. How'd that come together for you?
My dear friend Mike Polk produced it, and he asked me to be in it. So I'm standing between Dick Goddard and the governor. And I thought, well, what am I doing here? But the whole group of people it was fantastic. And I first got to know Mike Polk, who now is an anchor at Channel 3, WKYC in Cleveland. Real bright guy, funny guy. And he was a stand-up comic for many years. And he did a spoof on me. He put a rubber skull cap on, and he did an ad that said, if someone hits you with a shovel, I'll hit him with a bigger shovel. And it was funny. So I got a call from a friend of mine, and he started out the conversation. I didn't want to be the one to tell you this. I think, oh boy, what? He said, there's something out on the YouTube or whatever about you. And I'm thinking, well, what are you talking about? He goes, well, this guy's making fun of you. So I looked at it, and I thought it was actually funny. So I sent Mike Polk an email, and I said, you are a comic genius. You made me laugh so hard that for a whole 7 minutes I didn't feel like suing anybody. And so he responded, hey, you're a good sport. And we became great friends. and I have great admiration for him. He's a solid guy, and he's engaged to a lovely gal, Stephanie Haney, who also is a WKYC reporter. So he put that LeBron thing together, and obviously it didn't work, but we had a lot of fun doing it.
It looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend our audience to go check it out on YouTube.
Yes.
Speaking of like sports, I guess.
Yeah.
I understand like boxing. You're involved in some sort of boxing.
Well, there was a dear friend of mine, Gary Horvath, who's a 7-time Gold Gloves champ, and one day he took me to a gym, and he wanted to convert it into a neighborhood rec gym for inner city kids to come to free of charge. They could learn boxing skills, but moreover, it was discipline and structure in their life. So they'd have a place to go, and he had a room that they first had to do their homework, then they could box, and we became great friends, and I sponsored the club. It was called the Make and Pay Boxing Club. But what was really cool is when my wife Stephanie was pregnant with our oldest son Max, Coach Gary Horvath, a 7-time Golden Glove. Imagine that, 7-time Golden Glove, not once, twice, 3, 4, but 7-time Golden Glove champion. He said, someday I want to train Max. And when Stephanie was carrying him in, we knew he was a boy, and we're going to name him Max. And then, about 9 years later, I have a gym in my home. I got a heavy bag in the gym, and I was down in the gym working out, and Max came down, and he started hitting the heavy bag with his bare knuckles. And I said, Max, don't do that. You'll hurt your hand. But if you're a real good boy, maybe Santa Claus will bring you some boxing gloves for Christmas. Sure enough, Santa Claus brought him boxing gloves, and Max started boxing, and then Gary started training him. And Max started sparring and working out with Gary. So Gary is still doing great inner city work, and it's wonderful to be part of that, because again, it's a humbling thing for me, because you see how disadvantaged some folks are, and I feel compelled to help out. A big charity of mine is the City Mission. I do a lot for the City Mission, and you may know that 80% of the people who go to the City Mission, unfortunately, are single moms. And you see a mom in there with 3, 4 kids living, in a little bedroom, in a little space, and bunk beds, 2 bunk beds, and she's living in there. But the City Mission is such a magnificent place in that they help people who, at no fault of their own, are at the lowest ebb of their life. And they're non-judgmental, they're loving how they treat people, and it's great. They do daycare for the kids, so mom could get her GED and go for job applications and job placement, a safe place to hang out, gently used clothes, great meals, and some of these folks literally have nowhere else to go. But for the grace of God, me and you could be there.
Yeah,
am I right?
Exactly. Try and remember that daily. I try and teach my daughters that as well.
Right. We are so fortunate. It's crazy how fortunate we are, and I think sometimes we need to take an official time out on the field and give thanks to whoever you pray to, and recognize that, because man, you don't have to look very far to find examples of folks who are really, really in a bad way. Whether they have cancer, whether they have criminal problems, whether domestic problems, whatever it is, employment problems, or a combination thereof. And so every day that we could do what we want to do in life with people that we love, boy, that's a great day.
Yeah, I agree. Now, talking more about your influence on video and now movies.
Right.
We have the Misny Movie
Right.
coming together now.
Yes.
How did this come together for
Well, I got a call from Mo Taylor, I don't know, maybe 7 months ago, 7-8 months ago, and he's a accomplished independent filmmaker, and he said he'd like to do a piece on me. And what had happened was I had just recently spoke with the kids at Chagrin Falls High School, and I talked to about 150, 200 kids one afternoon, and I told them my life story. And the next week, I got 19 thank you notes in the mail from these students. I didn't know that high school kids knew what a postage stamp was, or how to cursive write a letter or put in the mail. So I was blown away to get these letters, and they were very touching. One young lady said that she had a bad relationship with her mom, but when she heard my talk about honesty, etc., she incorporated that into her relationship with her mom, and she said, it's been great. Another kid, I talk about work ethic. Like I like to say, hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard. And he incorporated that into his soccer training and practice, and he wasn't doing very well. Now, apparently he was doing really well. So it inspired me to tell the story, and we're having a lot of fun with it. The best way to describe it is, as Mo has described it, it's like we're filming our party. And we're having a lot of fun, and his wife is super talented. Catherine's super wonderful, and we're having so much fun. We're right now in pre-production. We're working on the script. We're working on casting, locations, etc., and we're doing some shooting. But it probably will course over a year, and then we're going to have a big theatrical release throughout Northeast Ohio, and the proceeds go to benefit the city mission. So hopefully we could do some good with it, and tell a story, and hopefully inspire kids to look at life differently. It depends what lens you look through in life, and there's great opportunity if you're willing to be honest, work hard. There's not much you can't accomplish.
I agree. And I've been blessed to be included in some of this pre-production with,
Yeah.
and become friends with Mo. We're both
Yes.
Navy men. And I got to be a part of the Misny Metal Fest.
Right, that was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was a great meet and greet. I didn't take you much of a heavy metal fan, though.
Well, I tell you, I enjoy across the board. I don't pigeonhole myself into one genre, and I think it was fun being there with the folks. Had a great time, but I come from a very humble background, and that enables me. You could parachute me into the middle of Pakistan, and I'll be okay. I'll get along, because when you come from a humble background, as you know, you don't have an elitist view of mankind, and you get along. And I pride myself. I could talk to federal judge and get along, and I could talk to a guy that shines shoes right around the corner, and I could get along. So I think a lot of it is how I was raised. A lot of lawyers that I know were raised in country clubs, and they do indeed have an elite view of mankind. I can't even spell elite. I can't even think of being elite. I treat people like I like to be treated, and it works.
And going back to like the music thing, what would you say is something that's your normal go-to when you do kick back and listen to music?
Well, I think the era that I came from, I was a Motown guy. So if you ask me what I got up this morning. I get up early in the morning. I got up this morning at 4, and I took care of some things, and I worked out. And while I was working out, I'd listen to my Motown station. So. But I go across the board, and of course I'm influenced by what my kids listen to. I'm a professional chauffeur for my kids, and I drive around. If on a typical Saturday, Bill, if you looked at a map in Europe and see how far I drove, you'd say, Tim, you drive through 7 countries in Europe, and so I of course listen to what they listen to, So I'm eclectic. I go across the board and like that.
Nice. And then we've touched a little bit on it. You've been given a lot of good pointers to your influence on today's youth. But if there's a particular advice, like what would you say is your best advice for today's youth out there?
Oh man, I don't think it's a one sentence thing. I think it's a conglomeration of the first thing is you got to be honest. You got to be honest with yourself, who you are, what you want in life, and life goes by, as you know, so fast. And to live a life according to someone else's principles or their expectations, you're never going to be happy. So to truly be happy, one has to really be honest who they are, what they want in life. And then once you find that, what it is, you can have passion for that. And then the work ethic is the most important thing. As I said, hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard. But I got to tell you, the most successful people in life that I've met are people that really work hard. I don't care what their endeavor is. It could be filmmaking. It could be being a lawyer. It could be being a doctor. It could be being a teacher. It could be a construction guy. I don't care. Somebody has a great work ethic. I don't judge people based upon their political affiliations or their religious beliefs. I judge people singularly on one thing. If they have a good work ethic, there's a 99.9% chance we're going to get along great. If someone has a lousy work ethic and they have a sense of entitlement, we have nothing to discuss.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
A lot in common.
And unfortunately, in our society,
Yeah.
talk about what do you tell kids? Our society is so much different that you listen to kids talk. When I was growing up and we had Christmas break, spring break, the conversation was amongst the kids, where are you going to work to make some money? Because if I wanted a new bike, I had to work to make that bike. So if I had a spring break or whatever it was, if at Christmas time, I'd be shoveling driveways. Spring break, I'd be raking leaves, cutting grass. I would work to make money because I wanted that bike or I wanted that baseball mitt. Now you hear kids talk about, well, we're going to go down to Myrtle Beach and we like it there. Oh my God. It's a sense of entitlement. They think that truly they're entitled for this lifestyle. You're not entitled for anything other than to have a level playing field and an opportunity to work hard. Am I right?
I agree. And I try and tell my daughters too, like you're one of the positive highlights on social media. If people go to follow your page, you're always giving some good advice and some pointers to, especially for the youth to see things differently. But I tell my kids 90% of social media influencer is crap. It's a lie. Don't buy it. It's
Right.
because they kind of feed that entitlement.
Sure.
They kind
Sure.
of give this false, false facade of this is what life is like, and things just you have.
It's
to
just going to, all you got to do is show up.
Yeah.
And that's tragic because no one owes you a damn thing other than a level playing field. And if you're willing to work hard, you could accomplish anything. The best thing my dad ever did for me, I was 14 years old, and I mentioned we grew up in this one-bedroom bungalow and 5 people in it, and we had a little breakfast nook. And my dad was sitting there reading the paper one Sunday morning and drinking a coffee, and I came in and said, "Hey, I got an announcement. I made a decision." My dad didn't look up from the paper, and he said, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And I said, I want to go to St. Joe High School. It was called St. Joe's at the time, not Villa Angela, St. Joe's before they merged. And he didn't look up. He said, "That's nice. Now, how are you going to pay for it?" I said, I didn't think about that. There's a golf course down the street, blah, blah, blah. I went and applied, and they hired me. That summer, they paid me 50 cents an hour. I was a low man on a totem pole, so my job was to clean garbage cans and toilets. That's what I did all summer. And one Saturday I came home, I had worked 10 hours. And I had $5 in my pocket. And I was a proudest little son of a gun walking around. I'd pull $5 out of my pocket and say, "Hey, how much you got?" "You got nothing?" "I got $5. "Where'd you get it?" I worked. I made it. That's where I got it. I knew at that moment I could do anything if I'm willing to work hard. I could have mostly anything I'd want if I'm willing to work that hard. And that was the best thing my dad ever did for me. The worst thing he could have done is say, "Okay, son, here's my credit card." And I would not have appreciated it. But I went to St. Joe's because I paid for it, and I took classes seriously. I was a National Honor Society student. I was a class officer, editor of the class paper. I took it seriously because it was my money, and I was going to make something out of it. So, the work ethic for kids today, you got to inspire them. But I think the basic is for them to be honest of what they want in life and be willing to work hard. But it's such a tough thing to overcome, that sense of entitlement, because some kids look at it and say, "Man, if you're not going to hand it to me, I'm not interested." Particularly when they're walking around like this all day with their head down, playing some video game, So and that inspired my series of commercials about do your homework. And I've been, bribing my kids, threatening my kids, begging my kids to do their homework, like every parent out there. So one day I was shooting some new commercials, and I said, "I got a new commercial. Let's film this." And he said, "Do you want to put it on the teleprompter?" I said, "No, I'm one take Tim. Just roll it." So I looked into the camera. I said, to all my young friends out there, listen up and listen good. Do your homework. I'm not kidding. It's real important, because if you don't, I'm sorry to say, life will make you pay. And it's true. So then we incorporated that into a billboard, and I can't tell you the response I have gotten. In fact, we had a promotion we were giving. We made these posters, nice-sized posters for teachers to put in their classrooms. And we gave a couple hundred away to various teachers, and now it's one of my billboards, do your homework or life will make you pay. And so recently, Bill, a guy called me up, and he said, my son isn't doing well in school, would you be willing to talk to him? I said, sure. So I talked to the young man, and just recently, last week, he sent me a certificate that the kid is doing exemplary work in school. So you got to inspire the kids. You got to make it relevant. You got to make them want it. You can't force it. And I think that is a big campaign of mine, and we got some great success with it. And it tickles me that that it's catching on like it is.
I've been so proud of my youngest daughter, Celestial, lately, because she got a job at Alfa Romeo car dealership
Wow.
out in Strongsville, and she started off as a porter,
Yeah.
worked her way into detailing, and has now worked her way up where she's doing titles
Wow.
and the
Right.
paperwork up in,
Yeah.
up in the admin. And she's always like listening during her downtime, listening to finance podcasts and stuff like that. She just sent me an episode today. She's like, Dad, check this one out. So it's just like, yeah,
Isn't that
she's
great?
been working her way up.
Isn't that great?
Learning all aspects of the business and just
Nothing's
working her
better
way
than
up.
that. That is, and that is a reflection of you, because, your kids get their work ethics from their parents. I got my work ethic from my dad. He always worked 2-3 jobs, always working. And then when he wasn't working, he was cutting grass and, washing cars with me, painting, maintenance, and he was always working. Never saw him sitting there watching a ball game, drinking beers, and watching playing some video game. He was always working 2-3 jobs so we could live the life we did. It was a middle class existence in Euclid. We ate great food, and I went to good schools, and it was a wonderful time. But I got my work ethic from him. So from the second I get up every day to the second I go to bed, I'm working, I'm hustling. And that comes from a role model. Hopefully, I could pass that on to my kids and other kids as well, because that's the engine that drives the locomotive. If you don't have a good work ethic, forget about it.
Yeah, I got the same from my dad. He's no longer with us. He lived to be 92. He was a World War
boy.
II Marine.
Yeah.
Invasion of Okinawa.
Yeah.
And we lived in a nice middle class home, but he was just so known in the community
Isn't that great?
for his engagement, and he was just, if I could be half the man he was,
Isn't that a great thing?
Right.
My dad was an MP in World War II, same way. And there was a certain character about them that I never heard my dad complain. I never knew if he was sick, because it didn't matter. He'd go to work, he'd come home, take care of this, And so when you see that and you try to emulate that, either it's subliminally, you see someone working all the time and trying to achieve more. And I think that is lost many times in our present generation.
I agree. Tim, before we get ready to wrap up, I wanted to ask you a couple of the questions that I normally ask my guests on.
All right, fire away.
We talked about your love of Motown, but do you
Right.
have who would you say are your top 3 musical artists?
Oh, wow. At the top, it's got to be Frank Sinatra, nothing to discuss. And then the King, Elvis Presley. And after that, I don't know. Then the third, it could be another.
It's usually the toughest one.
Yeah. So
You don't wanna leave anybody out.
So the first two, but again, it's really based upon what mood I'm in, what era I want to go back to, and it's always changing and like that. But Sinatra, was he the coolest cat ever?
Oh, yeah.
Come on, And Elvis Presley, again, great stories. What I think I not only like their music, but what I love about them is that they came from less than nothing. And Sinatra's song "My Way," if that isn't an anthem for people, and the Elvis Presley story of how he rose from poverty, and he dictated. It was his way. He did it his way. Did he make mistakes? Did Frank make mistakes? Sure. But they were a force of nature, and it's tough to argue with that.
Agreed. And then what's the last book that you've read?
Last book that I read, oh boy, last book that I read, what was it? I think it was a book on, it was the biography of Marilyn Monroe. Yeah, again, a fascinating story. I enjoy reading biographies of people because you see in their life how sometimes one event is a pivotal event, and the drive that people have to succeed, and how tough it is to move up the ladder, and tough it is to stay at the top, and all the trials and tribulations, and it makes the people who they are. And that's a life lesson that I've embraced, that some of the failures in life are great life lessons, and always inspires you to come back stronger. You see with a lot of athletes and people who may have an injury, they come back better, stronger, because it forces them to work that much harder. And so it was a biography of Marilyn Monroe. Fascinating study. Yeah.
Gotcha. And we've talked a lot about a lot of advice for youth today, but what class do you feel should be mandatory before graduating high school today?
Oh man, I think it. I don't think there is such a class. But I think they should put a class together on one's own personal enrichment. Being introspective, evaluating yourself, and doing testing to find out where your strengths are and giving some direction. Because kids come out of school and they really have a misconception about life. But I think some sort of introspection where a kid could analyze what he or she wants and what the avenues are to obtain that. And I think that unfortunately, what I tell my kids, many kids, is that it's unfortunate that you got to make some tough decisions when you're 17, 18. If you're not going to do well in school, 17, 18, that then closes options for you. Your trajectory changes in life. So I think early on, for them to see the opportunities out there and that they are attainable, I think at that time kids would be willing to put the work in. But when it's kind of cloudy, they can't see through it. But if they can see a clear picture, if you're willing to do this, this, and this, you could achieve that. I think more kids would be dedicated to doing the right thing.
No, I agree. And then who are three people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today?
Wow. Clearly my parents, my dad, with the work ethic thing, that was a lesson that I saw every single day. And as I said, I never saw him miss work. I never saw him complain about anything. He just was a driving force to achieve things for his family. And, he would work his ass off during the week, and then he'd go to church on Sunday and put money in the collection box and come home and do some chores. And that was his life. It was about achieving things. So I think that for my dad. And then I had two people that influenced me. One was Father Paul Wolfel. He was a Jesuit priest at John Carroll. He was my counselor, and he headed up the political science department. And as I said, I was a political science major, and I learned a lot of life lessons from him. My philosophy of life, the Jesuit hard work and discipline and honesty and thinking outside the box, and we remained friends until his death when he was 90-some years old, and we were kept our friendship. And then a gentleman named Pat Rocco, R-O-C-C-O. He was the law director of the city of Euclid, and I was a reporter for the Sun newspapers during my undergraduate work at John Carroll, as I said, and I wanted to go to law school, and he helped get me in law school by writing a letter of recommendation. Then he gave me a job working in the prosecutor's office during law school, part-time, so I could go to school part-time. I worked kind of full-time, so I could, because I had to put gas in my car, I had to pay my tuition, and I had to eat. So guess what? I needed to work. I didn't have a dad that could write checks and hand me a credit card. So, and then when I passed the bar. He invited me into his practice, and he named me an assistant prosecutor. So that was beyond pivotal to get my trajectory going. So those two folks, and I oftentimes, the highest compliment I could give them is, I think, what would they do if I'm confronted with a moral dilemma? I think, what would Father Wolfel do, or what would Pat Rocco do? And that is, it takes the emotion out of it, and it forces me to think on a higher level of what they would do, and that served me well.
That's awesome. And then, not to be a downer, but looking at the day where Tim Misny is no longer with us, what would you want your legacy to be?
I would like to be known first and foremost as a great dad. I think that's Joseph Kennedy Sr. once said, "You judge a man's value by the family he raises," and I'd like to be known as a great dad, and I'd like to be known as somebody who fought the good fight, who leveled the playing field, who gave people an opportunity against these multi-billion-dollar entities for justice. And I would like to be known further as someone who inspired some people to take on a challenge that they may not have contemplated, or even if they did contemplate, that they'd be willing to take on, but for hearing what I had to say about life. So I think that would be a good legacy.
Yeah, I agree. And then back to like a cheerier time. Do you remember what your favorite toy as a child was?
Probably my bike. Bike was a thing of freedom for me. Get on that bike, and back then, you could go. We would ride bikes like crazy, and you had to be home when the streetlights came on. And my bike was a sense of freedom. I could go into other neighborhoods. I could, experience different things, see different homes, different kids, go into different playgrounds, and pick up baseball games. And it was a sense of freedom that there was a world beyond the end of my driveway. So my bike was man, did I ride that thing. That was great, yeah.
Yeah, I remember those days myself.
Yeah.
And being home for the streetlights.
There you go. There you go.
And then any message that you have for our military members that are currently serving overseas?
Oh, boy. Man, what I would hope that they know is how much we appreciate their service and how we respect their dedication, and know that when they come home, they're going to be welcomed, embraced, and the opportunities will be great. And if they could just hang in there to get through what they need to get through, the opportunities are going to welcome them, and it's going to be much better than they could possibly imagine. But that's easy for me to say. I didn't serve, but I could only imagine being away from family and being in stressful situations that are so foreign to you, foreign language, foreign this, cultures. It's got to be surreal. But you hang in there and know that when you come back to the great US of A, you're going to be loved, and there's going to be great opportunities.
Awesome. And then for our audience out there that might be, new to here, this podcast does go globally. People that want to know more about Tim Misny and follow your adventures, follow your advice, and also, the updates on this Misny movie coming up. Where would you sign up?
So you gotta follow me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, a YouTube channel. Check out my website, misnylaw.com, and but I think my Facebook page is pretty cool. We do a lot of real personal things, and gives you an insight into what my life is about, and what I do in addition to making them pay, and also about make them pay, what it's all about, So follow me, and it would be great.
Awesome. Tim, I can't thank you enough for your time. I truly appreciate this.
Brother, God bless you.
It's been an honor.
Keep up the good work, and thank you for your service, man.
Thank you.
Listen up! Hold on to your seats. Grab your girls, grab your beers.
What's going on? It's Tommy Beck, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's